Joining us now is Politico magazine writer Sophia Nelson. Stuart Stevens is back with us.
Sophia, just pick up where the chairman left off. I mean, what is your take on this strategy or the lack thereof? And I mean, I say this 100 days out, right? The race has been appended, not just for the now Harris campaign, but also the Trump operation. And I don't know. It's feeling like we've talked a lot about speeches and what he's saying, and what he's saying is insane in many respects, and also not connected to just the reality of the race. But also there's the infrastructure piece of this. And I'm wondering how you see it all.
Listen, I've known Chris LaSavita a long time. He's
a real professional.
He's a smart guy, but he does not know how, the Republican Party does not know how to talk to black and brown people. They don't know how to relate to black and brown people, to women. And there could be no starker contrast right now, Michael and Simone, than what you see in these two campaigns. All these coalitions for Masora Vice President Harris. Trump is struggling. He's calling names. He's attacking. They're out of sorts. J.D. Vance is a hot mess. So I think when you get down to the infrastructure of the campaign, if I were giving Chris advice, I'd say, Chris, you better get somebody in real quick to teach your candidate and your vice president candidate how to speak to women in this country and how to actually stay on message and focus. I think that's their problem, Michael.
Yeah.
So, Stuart, picking up on that idea of a hot mess, I want you to take a listen to what Donald Trump had to say about, of all things, electricity. Take a listen. We do not have it. All right, let me just read it to you because the nuttiness will come through. We will be creating so much electricity that you'll be saying, please, please, President, we don't want any more electricity. We can't stand it. You'll be begging me, no more electricity, sir. We have enough. We have enough. I mean, the guy is a disaster, Stuart, and I just have to wonder. I know there's been a lot of talk about, like, oh, he wishes he could replace J.D. Vance. They would have chosen another VP contender had they known that they were going to run against Harris. If this were a governing party, a party that were serious about winning in November and not a cult of personality, would they be having a serious conversation about replacing Donald Trump?
Yes, but that's a time far away. That party doesn't exist anymore. You know, I mean, look, it's clear Donald Trump's a couple of tall boys short of a six-pack, but the underlying part of this is there is no policy here. So just think about it. Like, if Michael and I were running a campaign for Republican, right, you would put together a platform. And that platform would be what you wanted to do when you got elected governor, elected president, or elected governor. It's not very complicated. And whoever you were running against, it really shouldn't matter. Because this is what I want to do. I'm saying vote for me because I have these ideas. I'm excited about it. We can get this done. The other person, they want to do something else. Okay, maybe we'll talk about contrast. But you should be able to talk about what you want to do. And they can't do that, not only in the Trump campaign, but in the Republican Party, because there is no governing philosophy and there is no agenda. It's extraordinary how many Republicans out there are running ads about bills they voted against. The infrastructure. You know, J.D. Vance was asked what was his greatest achievement, and he named something in the infrastructure bill he voted against. And that's because they haven't done anything. And it's really a collapse of any kind of intellectual center of the party. And now you have this nutty Project 2025, which is filling a vacuum. And these people realize they can put together this sort of encyclopedia of radical ideas, and they are very radical ideas, and they could put them inside the Trump campaign because Trump himself has no ideas. He has emotions. He has grievances. He doesn't have governing philosophies or ideas.
But, you know, if I may, to Stuart's point, when he talks about former President Trump having grievances, he represents a large swath of Americans who also have those grievances. You have this fear of DEI, this fear of disappearing, this fear of being replaced, and that's what Trump and Vance's selection was a double down on, we're going to run the two white men to show you the way this country really ought to be handled. They want to go back to the 1950s, and Vice President Harris, she says, we're not going back. She's framed it about freedom, and Project 2025 is all about taking away our freedoms, all of us. It's not just some of us. There's a lot of stuff in there that you should read about because it's about taking away freedom.
It's about taking away freedoms for everyone. And I think I just think about Stewart's point that he made in the last segment about Donald Trump sealing with white voters. And let's just be very clear. Democrats haven't won white voters since, I don't even think Bill Clinton won white voters. I was talking to his pollsters some folks that used to be his pollsters. I'm like, did y'all even win the white vote? They were like, no, honey, but we did come close now. but we didn't win it. And so for Democrats, it is going to be about closing the margins of some of these spaces and places and having an expansive conversation where everyone can see themselves, right? So I've heard not just the president, not just vice president, the presidential candidate now, Vice President Harris, talk about the middle class and expanding, but you think of down ballot Democrats, the Senate candidates, the House candidates. Stewart, not only does Donald Trump not have a policy, House Republicans, senators who, Democrats are defending 23 seats this cycle. I always like to say really 22 because West Virginia, I think it's gone. Gary Peters might have something to say about that. But what are they running on? What is the policy when you've got your presidential candidate out here talking about radical abortion? Let's play the sound, please. The radical abortion.
No person in American politics has been more of a... Kamala is also a total radical on abortion. Should we talk about abortion? Do you mind for a second, right? When you compare my position on abortion to that of Kamala Harris, my position is actually, it just polled, 8 points higher, and that's because she's a radical. She's an absolute radical on abortion. She wants abortion in the 8th and 9th month of pregnancy. Think of that. And right up until birth and even after birth.
This is obviously not true. Obviously not true, but Stewart, this is what they're talking about. This is, his position is polling 8 points higher. What is Donald Trump's position? Overturn a Roe?
Because that's what he brags about.
The one thing you can control in a presidential campaign, in theory, is what your candidate is talking about. And when he's up there talking about abortion, he's losing this race. And he's just accelerating the rate at which he's losing, because that is an argument they are not going to win. And when he frames it up, where overwhelmingly the majority of the country was against Roe v. Wade. That's not true. That's a universe that doesn't exist in. So he, somewhere maybe in his mind, he believes this. If that was the case, what he's saying now would make sense. So there's kind of like a crop circle theory to this whole campaign. If you just understand what it is, it was really aliens and everything else makes sense. But you're really conducting this race in America. And they are on the minority view of huge issues, from abortion to gun control to what should be done about climate. They're just not where America is now, which is why they keep talking about the past. And they don't have any policies for the future. And, I've said this before. I used to have this client, Haley Barber, who Michael knows well, you probably know. And he used to say, I thought it was both funny and kind of profound, politicians should be for the future. It's going to happen anyway. And the Republican Party has abandoned that principle. And I just don't think you're going to be able to stop where the country's going, and people don't want to go back.
I know you want to make a point about cat ladies. Go ahead.
Yeah, well, Stewart, to your point, you talk about abortion. Look at what J.D. Vance has done, alienating and activating women on this childless issue. I'm one of those women that wanted children and couldn't have them. I have a piece this morning in the Atlanta Journal about this. And, I think that I've never seen something like this on social media, Simone, where I started a PAC, 50,000 subscribers the first 24 hours. Childless chicks for Harris, right? So my point is that women are activated now. You got Taylor Swift, you got Dolly Parton, you got a lot of childless women, and that's a big deal.
And it is a big deal, and lest we forget what his slander of step parents. Okay, it's a mess. Again, 100 days, we'll see where it takes them. Sophia Nelson, thank you. Stuart Stevens, thank you. Next, folks.